Hey friends, I think back years ago, we were in the process of relocating from the Washington, D.C. area to Raleigh, North Carolina. And we needed to move my wife's upright grand piano. Really nice piano, but the soundboard was made out of tank armor. Probably weighs like 500 pounds or more. And so we got together some friends and some family to begin to move that thing ourselves. And I'll never forget, as we were trying to maneuver that through the door into the back of a U-Haul and to push it up the ramp, half pushing, half carrying up the ramp. And all of a sudden it started to tilt to one side. Thankfully, we got reinforcements on that side it was leaning to, and we were able to get the piano leveled out. I think we probably lost a few family and friends because of all the pulled muscles that were a part of that. But friends, let's face it, we all have burdens that weigh on our hearts and minds. Sometimes those burdens are so great that no individual can carry it themselves. And sometimes the burdens are so great, even a team of friends and family can't bear the weight of that burden. And it can be overwhelming. It can stop us in our tracks when life circumstances that we face are so overwhelming, and even the support we try to build around us isn't enough to handle it. What do we do to keep resilient? Well, that's where God in His Word teaches us something, 25 words, in fact, right from the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans. In fact, it's a verse that many of you may have memorized, and you may know it. There's 25 words that when we're weighed down by life's burdens, that God teaches us through these important 25 words. And let me read them for you from Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Friends, one of the most important habits to be resilient in the face of overwhelming circumstances is to shift our focus from the circumstances that we face. And we shift that in such a way that we learn to trust God, that our hope is anchored in the Lord, in His goodness, in His love, in His grace, in His strength, in His wisdom. And we worship God, not the situations around us, not the chaos around us, not the circumstances that we face. And there are 4 things in these 25 words from Romans 8:28 I want us to reflect on in the next few minutes. Paul says, and we know. First, we know. Paul's emphasizing this remarkable truth. And it's something that you don't just think. It's not something that you just hypothesize. It's an absolute, unbending truth that I can have full confidence in. It's absolutely true with no doubt. There is absolute certainty in this truth. It is an unwavering, unbending, unchanging truth. Think about how right now you might be sitting in a chair. You're not even thinking about whether or not that chair can hold you up. You trust it. Your confidence is in it. And that would be in contrast of teaching your son to drive. And it's their first time to sit behind the steering wheel. You think they'll be okay on the road, but you're not sure. But here we know that this is something that we can be confident, assured by it, that we can rest in it and live by it. So Paul says, and we know. And then he goes on to say that in all things. So we know this absolute truth, and it's in all things. It's a comprehensive, all-encompassing truth that can be applied to every area of my life. Not just some things, not just the little things, not just the easy things, but in all things, various kinds of things. There is nothing outside the whole range of life events we might encounter that is not a part of God's truth and God's work. Always remember Debbie and I visiting my sister at Mayo Clinic in her battle with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And even in the midst of her circumstances, she had this fearless faith, this trust in the Lord that he was at work. I remember being the oldest, her oldest brother of 5. I was concerned. And I said, Angie, you need to make sure you're taking lots of vitamin C. You need to get more sleep. You need help with the kiddos. And then she stopped me in my tracks. She said, Scott, I can't do that. You don't understand. As a mom, I'm facing my worst fear that I wouldn't be able to take care of my kids. And now I'm facing that fear. But I can't live in fear. I've got to live in faith. What am I supposed to do? Live in a bubble? I can't do that. I've got to live by faith. I've got to trust the Lord through it. Angie's in heaven now, but during her time at Mayo Clinic, she was sharing the gospel with and encouraging many around her. And she just recognized this truth. She knew absolutely that in all things, even this most difficult circumstance, even in the midst of the tears and the burden that overwhelmed her, she knew that God was with her and was going to carry her and her family through this journey of hardship. And she knew the third thing that Paul emphasizes here in Romans 8:28, that God works, We know in all things that God works for the good of those who love him. That word work has the idea of unceasingly laboring for God's very best in my life. Friends, you love God because he first loved you. You are God's child, adopted by grace through faith. You are loved by God and called by him. And God is working round the clock for your good and for my good. It reminds me of as parents, if you're a parent, of your love for your children, that you will do everything you can to help your children thrive, to help them to grow, to help them overcome challenges. And this is just like the Lord. He labors for our good. He labors for our very best. He prioritizes what is good for us. God is working, he is toiling, he is tilling, he is laboring for his very best in our lives. And when we know that, it gives us a grit, it gives us an endurance, it gives us a hope that we can know in all things, God is at work for our good. And there's a fourth thing that we see in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. It's not just God working, but he's working out his purpose. In other words, God has a divine design for every situation I encounter, though I may not always understand. God works according to his purpose, never random, never by accident, never without design and direction. He focuses on our spiritual maturity, forming his children more and more into the image of Christ. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and have been called according to, fourth, his purpose. You see, we know that in all things God works, and the works that God is doing in our behalf are accomplishing his good and pleasing purposes, even when we don't understand. And so God has this divine design for every situation that I encounter. I think back to the years we added a second level to our home. And I remember starting with napkins, and with napkin sketches of the redesign. And we went through so many of those napkin sketches of trying to determine what the floor plan would look like and which way would the door open and the electrical setup and the lighting that was a part of it. But every detail was thought through with intentionality and with purpose. And eventually those napkins led to blueprints, and those blueprints led to rebuilding our home with a second level on it. God is not random. God is purposeful in every circumstance that we experience, even every hardship that we go through. God is working, and He's working purposefully, and He's striving to form us more and more into the image of the Lord Jesus Christ. We may never fully understand His purposes, but because of who God is, in His goodness, in His grace, demonstrated in the gospel, we can grow to trust Him in the tension and mystery of any circumstance. And as we learn these 25 words and we grow to trust God, no matter the situation, He can accomplish great things through you. I think of Charles Stanley, and he said this. He said, "Obey the Lord and leave all the consequences to Him." Friends, I don't know what your circumstances are right now and what ways that you might be overwhelmed, you might be ready to throw the towel in. But let's build these 25 words of resilience, of learning to trust God no matter the circumstance.